Колеги, розпочинаємо прес-брифінг радника прем'єр-міністра України пана Данила Лубківського. Прошу до слова.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm delighted to be here again, so I hope that anybody speaks English here, so I will deliver my key messages in English. I will start from that. I'm happy to be here again, so thank you interpreters for being with us, and I will try to explain a number of things, what's going on with the cabinet and with general developments in the country. I'm really happy to be with you, and I do count that we will continue with regular dialogue and communication. And I do believe that our communication may help better understanding of governmental policy, strategy, and this ambition to change this country. Today we mark the 17th anniversary of the International Holocaust International Remembrance Day. The Prime Minister Arseniy Yatsenyuk issued a special statement on this occasion. So our prayers are for peace. We stand in strong solidarity with the international community against fascism. We won against fascism in the Second World War. We Ukrainians, together with other nations, time and again, together we will certainly gain a victory over the current imperialistic evil and terror that challenged not only Ukraine's independency and integrity, but democratic values. Since we passed the Winston Churchill 2015 Memorial Day, let me quote his words: "We shall never surrender. Ukraine will never surrender. Democracy will never surrender. No chance for Mr. Putin." We value strong partnership with the Jewish community. I'm telling these words on behalf of the government of Ukraine. So that's a clear stance of Ukraine's government. No tolerance for xenophobia, anti-Semitism, and other issues that may challenge peace and democracy and our values in Europe. The Prime Minister looks forward to discussing these and other issues with the American Jewish Committee led by President Harris to visit Kyiv in the nearest days. Ukraine's government is currently focused on a number of challenging issues. Despite the war that costs us $5 million per day, occupation of Crimea and the several districts on Donbass that led to that we lost basically 20% of our economy, Ukraine survives. As you are well aware, Ukraine received $9 billion in financial support, though we repaid $14 billion of the external debt. Let me dwell on a number of issues that maybe that you are familiar with, but it is important to mention them again. As you are well aware, the coalition approved a comprehensive plan of reforms. The basic elements of that plan include third austerity package. So we cut the state administration by 20%. A new tax system, the shadowing economy, and targeting oligarchs, tycoons. Budget decentralization and deregulation. We do count, we, the cabinet, we do count on good cooperation with the House and strong interaction and communication inside the coalition. I do believe that they will adopt important decisions today, and I do hope that they have already started their work. So all our thoughts are about good cooperation with our strong partners in the Parliament and with the President, of course. The government and the president are committed to deliver on reforms in the framework of the coalition agreement, governmental action plan, and president's strategy of 2020. So these are three elements that are fundamental for our vision and our further actions. Our major priorities are, they go as simple, they sound simple, but this is a piece of work to do them. So I do believe that you may understand how difficult it may be and how challenging it is to change this country to make new Ukraine possible. So defense and security. We have 5% of GDP for that purposes, and we are devoted to bring this sphere up to NATO standards and practices. Another priority is, second priority is a new small government and administration management. I mean, e-governance, transparent offices, bureaucracy cuts. We are going to reduce, and I do believe that we can do this, to reduce state control bodies over businesses from 56 to 28, and control functions from 1,032 to 680. Sounds close, but nevertheless, that's an impressive figure. Fight against corruption stands as a third priority. That's a basic issue. We fought corruption at macro level, in energy sphere, no intermediaries there, and we have the increased budget revenues by 5%. But much more to be done. We would be happy if the civil society will further control the government and the power in this country to make this dream come true, that we may stop the enormous scale and scope of corruption in Ukraine. It includes law enforcement reform, and we are happy that we have started it already. A lot of problems there, but I do believe that we will have some tangible results that I can inform you about, as my colleagues from the Ministry of Interior can do it as well. And, of course, the control over the public servants' expenses. A new economy policy of this government means that our major focus should be put on medium-sized business. Middle class, that's what we belong to. So the major idea is to reduce the public sector expenses in the GDP structure for 10%. We believe that after this dramatic time that we go through, we would have a chance to pay more attention on innovation. Our vital decision is to deregulate the economy and to reduce the tax pressure on small and medium-sized business, including double reduction of a single tax rate and a ban on supervisory inspections in 15-16. And the final issue, which is very important for myself, this is the European Union Association Agreement. That's a vital task. That's a clear roadmap how we can go on. So please accept and receive my clear message. No delays and no excuses. I'm happy to announce that right now our central bodies work on their working plans to implement their field spheres. So in the nearest day we will receive some good news from the Ministry of Social Policy, and so we will have some good changes in the sphere. We need more communication. That's a major message that I brought to you today. More communication, and I would be happy to go on with this communication. Let me announce that the Cabinet of Ministers, fulfilling the tasks which was set by the Prime Minister, started the series of regional trips of the Cabinet Ministers around Ukraine. more talks, more dialogue to explain what decentralization means. Ukraine's government counts on further international support. Let me quote an important article published today in the New York Times by Bernard-Henri Lévy and George Soros. A new Ukraine was born a year ago in the pro-European protests. Many of those in government and parliament are volunteers who have given up well-paying jobs to serve their country. Ukraine will defend itself militarily, but it urgently needs financial assistance. The immediate need is for 15 billion. But to ensure Ukraine's survival and encourage private investment, Western powers need to make a political commitment to provide additional sums, depending on the extent of the Russian assault and the success of Ukraine's reforms. It is not only the future of Ukraine that's at stake, but that of the European Union itself, unquote. That was from George Soros and Bernard-Henri Lévy. On behalf of the government of Ukraine, let me thank these outstanding persons for such a clear statement and vision and a message to our Western partners. We look forward to tangible results with our international partners and financial institutions. We are grateful for the support, and we look for more help and assistance. Let me also mention that we are glad that yesterday we saw a clear manifestation of support with regard to Ukraine during the public meeting of the United Nations Security Council, with a clear, strong stance of the international community against the regime of President Putin. And we enjoy the announcement of a new package of financial assistance, around 52 million from Canada. So on behalf of the government, I would like to express our sincere gratitude to the government of Canada. Ladies and gentlemen, before finishing, let me mention maybe the most important, crucial issue, the tragedy that we face in the East. The Ukrainian government considers the outrageous acts of terror that happened in Mariupol to be deliberate massive killings of innocent civilians and crime against humanity. This is a complete, brutal violation of international law. The Russian militants are intentionally shelling residential areas. Let me also mention that these attacks followed the brutal statements done by rebels and Russian terrorists in the area. Russia must bear full responsibility. Russia must take this responsibility. The general situation is explosive but remains under control. The Prime Minister leads the Emergency Operations Center and staff. Yesterday, the Cabinet took a number of highly important decisions to counter the challenges. The Cabinet introduced the regime of emergency situation in Donetsk and Luhansk region and heightened the overall alert level around the country. The reason behind the decision is to completely coordinate the activities of all the powers of authority and provide security for the citizens. These are regimes focused on the governmental bodies, not people. No restrictions or limits for people's rights. So all necessary instructions have been done by Prime Minister Arseniy Yatsenyuk to central and local officials. The Emergency Operation Center and staff work 24/7, and urgent measures are taken to help the victims. The Cabinet and the central bodies, including the Foreign Ministry, will further brief you on these developments. So that was my English part, and I'm glad to switch on Ukrainian part. Шановні пані та панове,
Esteemed ladies and gentlemen, I'm happy to see you. I would like to briefly add to what I have said already in the English part of my briefing. First of all, briefly, I would go back to the topic that was the leading topic yesterday, today, and will be the same tomorrow. These are the decisions made under the leadership of the Prime Minister Yatsenyuk within the State Commission on Emergency Situation. The provisions on that was approved yesterday. What we mean, these are four principal decisions which were made yesterday. First of all, the decision on introducing the regime of emergency situation in Donetsk and Lugansk regions, and also the regime of the enhanced readiness over the country, no restrictions and limitations of rights and freedoms of our citizens. Arseniy Yatsenyuk mentioned that all that, first of all, relates to the state bodies in this country. We need to bring this country to order. After yesterday's report that the Prime Minister heard, we see what is the status and what's happening with the infrastructure and with the state system that is to be corrected by the resources provided by the central authorities. And also yesterday we included the financial expenditures and the local budgets. The task, the common task of everyone in our country is to localize the danger, to put the barriers to dissemination, to expansion of this danger, and also especially this is important in the situation when we are faced with aggression from Russian Federation. So the State Commission started its work. The Commission is working on a permanent basis. Also, the Prime Minister instructed to create the regional centers that work 24/7, and we emphasize several things. That's information to the population. We need to act like all normal countries are working. We need to explain to people clearly about potential threats, about what's may be in the future, how to act without panic, without emotions, with clear understanding of how this should be done. Is that a simple task? No, that's not a simple task.
Державні чиновники ефективно його виконати. Скажу вам крамолу, у нас є великі проблеми з цією ефективністю. Але чи потрібно це робити? Так, безумовно. Потрібно.
Shall we do that? Yes, we have. And we have to create such a level of preparedness or availability which would prove that Ukraine is capable to defend itself. And Ukraine can really defend itself. And to crown all that there is a decision taken in order to coordinate the activities between the regions in order to, if we are talking about some medications or the material property which have to be provided for the purpose of exchange between the regions. In fact, we are talking about the single system of the civil defense which have to be in place, put in place, and work efficiently. That means that Ukraine will always actually welcome the experience of other countries, how to do that work. And these have to meet the standards, including those of the North Atlantic Treaty and what we have available in the European space. I would like to mention other things separately in order to share my opinion for the general understanding. In my speech of introduction, I actually mentioned the major priorities which are the focus of attention of our government. But of course, the first priority is the communication with the Ukrainian community, with Ukrainian media people, journalists, in the attempt to explain what's behind this or another decision taken. And in case of some difficulties or problems, we have to efficiently and promptly respond to those. And this is not some kind of an, let's say, dream which can be attained or achieved. I do hope we can do that. I do hope that our dialogue will be held on a regular basis, and this Ukrainian Crisis Media Center, which is my favorite center actually, will give me a chance to come every Tuesday to discuss different developments in all the spheres in our life, including political, economic, and we have to talk and have dialogue with the regions. We really have a dialogue, and you, let's say, dialogue with the regions. This dialogue and talk will take place under very difficult terms and conditions, but we have to do that. Again, we have to resume and to fill with a new sense the previous dialogue according to the president. That's why the government was instructed to meet with the reps of the regions in different localities in order to explain to them those components and elements of the governmental policy which can depict clearly the horizons of our development. First of all, we are talking about decentralization of the authorities and the budgetary decentralization. As you know, the government already has delegated to the regions, according to the Ministry of Finance, 10% of the, let's say, the taxes from the businesses, 100% of the expenses for providing services, 50% of the ecological environmental tax, 25% for the earth bowels and the let's say mineral resources, against the certain percent of the tax for the luxury cars, for the local charges, taxes, etc. And the total sum which will allow us to accumulate $45 billion. You know that respective decisions have been taken about the medical subventions of the government, and now we have to give the ball, so to say, to the field of the local government. This is a clear policy of the government. The local budgets have to complete their formation, and they already have negotiated a certain distance. At least as of the end of the last week, 30% of local budgets have been already formed. There are a lot of other local budgets which will include the educational and medical subventions, which will allow us to ensure the necessary budget for those important spheres. And again, those are the spheres and the issues. The representatives of the respective government ministers have to go on the business trips to different localities according to the decision of the Prime Minister of Ukraine. The Vice Prime Minister, Mr. Duzebko, already visited some of the regions. They plan to go to Donetsk, Lugansk, and other districts. Is Donetsk, Zaporizhia, and Chernihiv. The Minister of the Ministry of Cabinet Ministers already visited the Kyiv region. She plans to go to the Chernihiv region. The Minister of Economy, Poltava and Sumy regions. The Ministry of Interior visited already Kharkiv region, plans to go to the Odessa region. The Ministry of Energy, Lugansk and Volyn regions. The Ministry of the Youth and Sport, Khmelnytskyi and Ternopil regions, and other ministries, including the Ministry of the Foreign Affairs, also plan to go to different regions. And those are really very important to all of us in order for us to start a normal and the discussion what the government is doing, what are the errors or mistakes taken by the government, and what the government does in a very just and fair way. So those are the plans for the near future. At this point of time, I would like to thank you for your kind attention, and I'm ready to answer several questions. I will be appreciative if you give me a chance to go as early as possible. Thank you.
And the question to you as to diplomat. I knew about that threat Yesterday, Nadia Savchenko received diplomatic immunity, but Russia did not let her out of the prison. What would be the next steps of Ukrainian government to liberate Nadia Savchenko? Thank you for this question. Yesterday, there was the International Day of Solidarity with Nadia Savchenko. That is an example of violating of any normal fundamental norms of international law and civilized relations. And that is what Kremlin is doing, violating all these norms, keeping Nadia Savchenko as a political prisoner. As to specific steps that could help liberate Nadia, such a thing as the answer to that could be given by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. I believe that it is very important that Nadia Savchenko, as the member of our delegation to Parliamentary Assembly of the Council of Europe, is supported by all our European partners. And that is the pressure which will eventually force Putin's regime to liberate Nadia. To free Nadia. We and the government of Ukraine are impressed by the courage of that girl, and that is not a simple task how to liberate her. All the efforts that could be put by the government are put, and they will be put. We count on further powerful international tension to liberate Nadia Savchenko, Alexei Sentsov, and all political prisoners of Putin's regime who are on the territory of Russian Federation. Union, I have one question and one clarification. Talking about this legal status of the regime of emergency situation. I saw the legislation, there's an emergency situation and emergency environmental situation. What is emergency situation? What are the regulations? For that, because we understand with the environmental emergency situation, but as to yesterday's decision, we do not understand. Is that just the PR of the government, in a good sense of the word? And the question on reforms. Today, the Judge Vovk from Pecher's court passed the resolution that the head of the fiscal service has to apologize to Klimenko because of blackmail. The court made the resolution saying that Belarus was slandering Klimenko, and that is actually how is that related to the reforms and to judicial reform in particular? The second question is very good. I will start from the first one. And definitely all the decisions made by the Cabinet of Ministers, they correspond the national legislation, Ukrainian laws, and the Code of Civil Protection. That is nothing new. That is no PR. That is what the government has to do in any country. And that is what the government is devoted to. According to the national legislation, there are several regimes of reaction to emergency situations. I'm sorry for all these bureaucratic words, but that is according to the legislation. We have 4 of such regimes. The first regime is the regime of day-to-day functioning. The second regime is the regime of the enhanced readiness. What is enhanced readiness about? That's coordination. That is total information provided to the population, forecasting this or that situation, which allows to reduce number of risks. The third regime is the regime of emergency situation, when there is a threat, when there is a need to mobilize all governmental efforts, including the special units, to localize the threat, to keep situation under the control. All the 3 regimes do not envisage any restrictions and limitations for the citizens' rights and freedoms, and that's mobilization of the state bodies. But there are 2 more regimes, the regime of the emergency situation and war situation. and these are the special law legal regimes introducing them. They could be introduced by the National Defense and Security Council, in some cases by the government, and then the decree is to be signed by the president. After that, the parliament approves that. The parliament has to approve the decree of the president within 2 days. These two regimes provide for limitations and restrictions for the citizens of Ukraine. This way, the government, under its competence, passed a decision to introduce the regime of the emergency situation in Donetsk and Lugansk regions and regime of enhanced readiness all over the country. That is an important step. That is our mobilization of the state apparatus, the system of civil defense, information to population. The people are to be informed on how to act, and that is the principal difference. And because there are different competences, the government has executed its task, and the task is the consequence of the situation. And the reaction was immediate. As soon as there was the aggravation of the situation and there were these awful acts of terrorism, immediately on Friday, the Prime Minister of Ukraine, Yatsenyuk, organized communication with the representatives of law enforcement bodies, regional authorities. There were forces mobilized to protect certain facilities, and the list of facilities under protection, secured facilities is expanded. And the next step is to set up the State Commission, which is headed by the Prime Minister. I would like to emphasize that we haven't had that in Ukraine. The Prime Minister will be heading the Commission on Emergency Situations. He has two deputies there. This commission includes all the members of the government, and this commission today will supplement the work of the commission, and its work will be supplemented by the regional centers, and this commission will mobilize the actions of all the state authorities that had to be done, and the government has done that.
We have some specification from Ukrainian news. Ukrainian news, Sergei Bosik, Mr. Lubkivskiy, will you please tell us? You mentioned that every day Ukrainian economy loses a lot of, and the $5 million because of the warfare, and the losses are about 20%. Can you give a specific figure? We are talking economic loss. I would be happy to specify those figures to share with you. Then another question. Are there plans of the Prime Minister to go abroad in the nearest future? Who is he planning to meet during those trips? The information about the planned itinerary of the Prime Minister, if you're talking about some foreign countries, we are going to announce those as soon as we know. The Prime Minister now is here. The situation required that the Prime Minister stays here within this country to coordinate the efforts of all the governmental units and agencies. So he is here. He is the head of the Emergency Commission, the State Emergency Commission, and he works 24 hours, 7 days a week in the system of the emergency situation regime.
Concerned is the Prime Minister that the rebels and the Russians might try to take all of Donetsk and Luhansk oblasts. And if they decide to do that, could Ukraine actually stop them?
Thank you for this question. This is a clear thing that was an intention of Russian troops and those terrorist units to intensify the offensive against Ukraine in order to undermine the general security situation, including our talks with the international financial institutions and our partners, simply to stop Ukraine. They will fail. Of course, that's a matter of high concern for the Prime Minister, for the President of Ukraine, who leads this country in this dramatic war. And let me again quote Winston Churchill's quotes, saying that we shall never surrender. But this is not the only point. We will free our occupied territories from the Russian aggressor. Thank you.
Дуже дякую, Данило.
Я вам дуже дякую.
Thank you very much indeed. My colleagues, I was really happy to see you again and see you soon.